Captain Linda Moore stood on the bridge of the USNS Mercy's Grace, staring at the blue-green planet that filled the main view screen. Proxima b looked peaceful from orbit. Too peaceful for a woman who had spent 20 years in combat zones. Linda ran her hand through her short gray hair and sighed. This wasn't what she had planned for the final stretch of her career. A hospital ship. After all her years of service, all her combat decorations, they had given her a hospital ship. "Status report," she said to no one in particular. First Officer Paul Green looked up from his console. "Standard orbit achieved, Captain. Environmental systems are optimal. Medical bays fully operational." Linda nodded. At least the crew was top-notch. They deserved a captain who was excited about their mission. "The settlement has confirmed our arrival," said Communications Officer Ryan Cooper. "They're sending up coordinates for the most severe cases." The planet below held humanity's newest colony, barely 3 years old. 5,000 brave souls trying to build a life on an alien world. According to the reports, they were facing mysterious illnesses. Some blamed the alien environment, others suspected something more sinister. That was why the Mercy's Grace had been dispatched, a state-of-the-art medical vessel with the best doctors and equipment Earth could provide. The bridge door slid open, and Dr. Frank Daniels walked in. The ship's chief medical officer never seemed to stand still. He was already scrolling through patient data on his tablet. "Captain, I've reviewed the preliminary reports from the colony," he said. "Very concerning patterns. Multiple presenting, symptoms that don't match any known terrestrial disease." Linda turned to face him. "Your assessment, Doctor?" Frank scratched his beard. "Could be simple exposure to new microorganisms. Every planet has its own biology. But some of these symptoms, they're too targeted, almost engineered." "Engineered?" Security Officer William Powell perked up from his station. The former Marine was always alert to threats. "Are you suggesting deliberate contamination?" Frank shrugged. "I'm not suggesting anything yet, just noting that these patterns are unusual." Linda returned her gaze to the view screen. "How soon can we begin bringing patients aboard?" "My team is prepping the quarantine bay now," Frank said. "We can start receiving the most critical cases within the hour." Linda nodded. "Make it happen." As Frank left, Linda felt the familiar weight of command. Even on a hospital ship, lives depended on her decisions. Different vessel, same responsibility. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. The Mercy's Grace deployed its shuttle fleet, bringing up dozens of colonists with the most severe symptoms. Dr. Daniels and his team worked tirelessly, gathering data, running tests, trying treatments. Linda made her rounds through the medical deck, visiting patients and speaking with the medical staff. This was new territory for her. On combat vessels, the wounded were evacuated. Here, the wounded were the mission. She found Dr. Samantha Wright, the ship's xenobiologist, analyzing tissue samples in the lab. "Any progress, Doctor?" Linda asked. Samantha looked up from her microscope. "Some, Captain. Whatever is affecting these colonists, it's not natural to the planet's ecosystem. The molecular structure shows signs of engineering." So Dr. Daniels was right. It appears so. Samantha displayed a holographic image of a cell being attacked by an unknown pathogen. These microorganisms target specific human systems with precision. They're not just random alien bacteria the colonists encountered. Linda frowned. "Are you saying someone deliberately infected the colony?" "I don't have enough evidence to make that claim yet," Samantha replied carefully. "But these pathogens didn't evolve naturally on Proxima b." Linda was about to respond when the ship-wide alert sounded. She reached for her communicator. "Moore here, what's happening?" "Captain, to the bridge," came Officer Powell's tense voice. "We've detected an unknown object entering the atmosphere on the far side of the planet." "On my way." When Linda arrived, on the bridge, her crew was already tracking the object. "Classification?" she demanded. Paul Green looked up from the sensor display. "Artificial structure, Captain. Approximately 20 meters in length. Controlled descent, but trajectory suggests it's damaged." "A ship?" Linda moved to see the display herself. "Most likely." Not human design. Definitely not one of ours, Paul confirmed. This changed everything. Humanity had yet to make confirmed contact with intelligent alien life. There had been signals, anomalies, but never concrete proof. And now, a potentially alien vessel was crashing on a human-colonized world. Any response to our hails? Linda asked. Ryan shook his head. None, Captain. Either their communications are damaged or they're ignoring us. Linda made a quick decision. Powell, assemble a team. I want combat medic Joe Martinez and Dr. Wright included. Take a shuttle and investigate, but approach with caution. Yes, Captain. Powell seemed relieved to be taking action. As the team prepared to depart, Linda pulled Powell aside. This is a medical ship, Officer Powell. Our primary mission is to help. If there are survivors in that crash, they may need medical assistance. Powell nodded stiffly. Understood, Captain, but we'll be prepared for all contingencies. Linda watched from the bridge as the shuttle departed. The unknown ship had crashed in a remote area, far from the human settlement. That was fortunate, or deliberate. Dr. Daniels joined her on the bridge. I heard the news. Potential first contact, and it happens near a hospital ship. Convenient timing, Linda remarked, especially with an outbreak of engineered pathogens already affecting the colony. You think they're connected? Linda kept her eyes on the view screen, watching the tiny dot of the shuttle approach the crash site. I don't believe in coincidences, Doctor. An hour later, the shuttle team reported in. Officer Powell's face appeared on the main screen, his expression a mixture of shock and awe. Captain, you need to see this, he said, stepping aside to reveal what was behind him. Linda's breath caught. In the wreckage of what was clearly an advanced spacecraft lay a humanoid figure. Its skin was a striking azure blue, with features that were both alien and eerily familiar. Dr. Wright was already scanning the being with medical equipment. It's alive, Captain, Samantha reported, excitement evident in her voice. Badly injured, but alive. And its physiology. It's different, but there are amazing similarities to human biology. Can we help it? Linda asked. Samantha looked up. I believe so, Captain. But we need to get it to the ship immediately. Linda made her decision instantly. Bring it aboard. Prepare the isolation unit. She turned to Dr. Daniels. Doctor, it seems you're about to make medical history. As the shuttle returned to the Mercy's Grace, Linda knew that nothing would be the same again. This wasn't just a hospital ship anymore. It was humanity's first point of contact with an intelligent species from beyond Earth. And somehow she suspected this was only the beginning of a much larger story. What had started as a routine medical mission had just become the most important deployment in human history. The isolation unit on the medical deck of the Mercy's Grace buzzed with activity. Dr. Frank Daniels had never felt such pressure in his 25 years of medicine. The blue-skinned alien lay on the central biobed, surrounded by equipment that had been designed for human patients. The medical team worked with quick, careful movements, adapting their techniques for an entirely new biology. Vital signs are stabilizing, said Nurse Betty Adams, monitoring the alien's life functions on a modified display. At least I think they are. Dr. Samantha Wright nodded, her eyes never leaving the alien she had nicknamed Blue in her mind. Its cardiovascular system is remarkably similar to ours, she said. Dual-chambered heart, oxygen-carrying blood cells, different biochemistry but same basic principles. Dr. Daniels carefully sealed a wound on the alien's chest. The similarities are both fascinating and convenient. If they were methane breathers or had silicon-based biology, we'd be useless right now. Captain Linda Moore watched from behind, the isolation field. Part of her training demanded she report this find immediately to Earth Command. Another part knew that such a report would take days to reach Earth, and bureaucracy would take over. By then, this alien patient might be dead. Security. Officer William Powell stood beside her, his hand never far from his sidearm. Captain, we should inform headquarters immediately, he said, as if reading her thoughts. Linda kept her eyes on the medical team. And tell them what exactly? That we found an injured alien but let it die while waiting for instructions? Protocol is clear, Powell insisted. First contact scenarios require immediate notification. First contact protocols assumed diplomatic meetings, not emergency medical care, Linda replied. We have a patient who needs help now. The paperwork can wait. Powell frowned but said nothing more. Inside the isolation unit, the alien suddenly moved. Its four-fingered hand twitched, then rose slightly. Dr. Wright froze, then slowly placed her own hand near the alien's, careful not to touch it. The alien's eyes opened. They were startlingly human-like, with dark pupils surrounded by silver irises. The medical team fell silent as the alien's gaze moved from person to person, finally settling on Dr. Wright. Hello, Samantha said softly, knowing the alien couldn't understand but feeling compelled to speak anyway. You're safe. We're trying to help you. The alien's mouth moved, producing sounds unlike any human language. Then, unexpectedly, the lights in the medical bay flickered. What was that? Dr. Daniels asked, looking up. The ship's computer terminal near the biobed suddenly activated, displaying rapidly changing symbols. Nurse Adams stepped back in surprise. It's interfacing with our system somehow, said Dr. Wright, fascination, overriding caution. The symbols stabilized, forming patterns that gradually shifted into English letters. Thank you for assistance appeared on the screen. Captain Moore stepped closer to the isolation field. It's communicating through our computer system, she said, amazed. Or hacking it, Powell muttered, his posture tense. Dr. Wright leaned toward the terminal. Can you understand us? She typed. Yes, translator functioning, came the reply. Your language simple, similar to others we have studied. Linda made a quick decision and entered the isolation unit. Dr. Daniels looked like he wanted to object, but remained silent. I'm Captain Linda Moore of the United States Naval Ship Mercy's Grace, she said clearly. We found you injured after your ship crashed. The alien watched her with those silver eyes, then turned to the terminal. Its fingers didn't touch the keys, but words appeared anyway. I am navigator. My designation would be difficult for you. Purpose. Observation and contact. You came to make contact with us? Linda asked. Not initially. Observation only. Situation changed. Linda glanced at Dr. Wright, who couldn't hide her excitement. Changed how? Linda asked. The alien seemed to hesitate. Then more text appeared. Others came. Dangerous others. They attacked my vessel, had to warn. Security Officer Powell had entered the isolation unit now, his suspicion evident. Warn us about what? The alien's silver eyes shifted to him. Krell. They see death before harvest. Dr. Daniels stepped forward. The illnesses affecting the colonists, he said. Are you saying they were deliberately caused by these Krell? Yes. Biological weapons they test, then they come. A chill ran through the room. Linda leaned closer to the terminal. Why? Why target our colony? Krell eliminate emerging species. Prevent future threats. My people, Navari. Observe and protect when possible. The ship suddenly trembled slightly. Somewhere, an alert began to sound. Captain, came First Officer Paul Green's voice over the comm system. We're experiencing system malfunctions across multiple decks. Environmental controls, navigation systems, even some medical equipment is behaving erratically. Powell gave the alien an accusing look. It's sabotaging the ship. The alien typed rapidly. Not me. Krell technology. They found me. Preparing you. Preparing. Us for what? Linda demanded. War. In the hours that followed, Linda assembled her senior staff in the conference room. The alien, whom the crew had indeed begun calling Blue, had been moved to a more comfortable recovery area still under guard. Linguist Peter Garcia had been assigned to improve communication with their visitor. Let me make sure I understand. Correctly, said Linda, looking around the table. An alien race called the Krell is deliberately infecting our colonists with engineered pathogens as a precursor to an attack. Blue's people, the Navari, have been watching humanity. Decided, we're worth saving and sent Blue to warn us. and now both the colony and this ship are in danger from an imminent Krell attack. Dr. Wright nodded. That's the situation as Blue has described it. The Navari are peaceful explorers who believe in preserving biodiversity across the galaxy. The Krell are the opposite. They eliminate emerging intelligent species before they can become threats. And we're supposed to just trust this information? Powell asked. From an alien who can manipulate our computers with its mind? The biological evidence supports Blue's claims, Dr. Daniels said. The pathogens affecting the colonists are definitely engineered, and they're becoming more aggressive by the day. Linda turned to engineer Susan Baker. What about the system malfunctions? Susan looked troubled. They're increasing, Captain. Something is inserting code into our systems. We can patch one area and another starts glitching. It's like fighting a virus that keeps adapting. Blue says it's Krell technology, Dr. Wright added. Some kind of advanced infiltration. Linda stood up and walked to the viewport. The peaceful view of Proxima B contrasted sharply with the threat they now faced. Options? She asked. First Officer Green spoke first. Standard protocol would be to report to Earth Command and await instructions. Which would take days, Linda said. We could evacuate the most essential personnel and critical patients, then withdraw to a safe distance, Powell suggested. Dr. Daniels shook his head. And abandon thousands of colonists who are getting sicker by the hour? That's not why we're here. Linda turned back to face her crew. This ship was designed to save lives. That hasn't changed. What has changed is the scope of our mission. Captain, Paul said carefully, the Mercy's Grace isn't a warship. We have minimal defensive capabilities. Linda's expression remained determined. No, but we have something potentially more valuable. Medical knowledge and a source of intelligence. About our enemy. You're suggesting we stay and fight? Powell asked, looking surprised but not displeased. I'm suggesting we stay and heal, Linda corrected. But if healing requires fighting, then we adapt. She looked around at her assembled officers. This isn't your average hospital ship anymore. It's now the front line in humanity's first interstellar conflict. As if to emphasize her words, the lights flickered again. The enemy was already inside their systems, inside the bodies of the colonists below. The battle had begun before they even knew they were at war. In the medical bay, Blue watched the ship's internal sensors, tracking the spread of the Krell influence. Soon the humans would understand the true scale of the threat. Soon, they would have to decide if they were ready to join a conflict that had been raging across the stars long before their species looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. Captain Linda Moore stared at the message from Earth Command on her screen. The orders were clear and expected. Evacuate essential personnel and retreat to a safe distance until military reinforcements could arrive. Estimated time of arrival. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Linda closed her eyes. By then, the colonists on Proxima B would be dead or dying. The Krell would have a foothold in human territory. They're ordering us to run, she said to First Officer Paul Green, who stood beside her desk. Paul nodded grimly. Standard procedure. We're not equipped for this kind of situation. Linda opened her eyes and deleted the message. No, we're not. But we're all those people down there have. Captain, with respect, we can't disobey direct orders, Paul said, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced by his own words. Linda stood up. I'm not disobeying. I'm choosing to interpret them creatively. The order says to evacuate essential personnel. All 5,000 colonists are essential. The order doesn't specify where to evacuate them to. Paul raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting we bring the entire colony aboard? No. I'm suggesting we turn this hospital ship into something the Krell aren't expecting. An hour later, Linda had assembled her senior staff in the ship's largest conference room. Dr. Daniels, Dr. Wright, Engineer Baker, Security Officer Powell, and Communications Officer Cooper all looked at her with varying degrees of concern and curiosity. Blue was also present, now able to communicate through a portable interface device created by the engineering team. The Krell expect us to run, Linda began. Standard protocol would be to abandon the colony until military vessels arrive. But by then it will be too late. What are you proposing, Captain? Dr. Daniels asked. Linda laid out her plan. We turn the Mercy's Grace into our first line of defense. Susan, you said our medical lasers could be modified for external use? Engineer Baker nodded slowly. The surgical lasers are precise enough to cut through hull metal if recalibrated, and the diagnostic imaging arrays could be repurposed as targeting systems. But Captain, we'd still be outgunned by any real warship. We have advantage, Blue's device displayed. Krell not expect resistance from medical vessel. Exactly, Linda said. And Dr. Daniels, you mentioned the colonists' blood samples. Showed something unusual? Frank leaned forward. Yes, their immune systems are developing antibodies to the Krell pathogens. Slowly, but it's happening. Some colonists are naturally more resistant than others. Could those antibodies be weaponized against the Krell themselves? Linda asked. Dr. Wright's eyes widened. You're suggesting biological warfare? I'm suggesting we use our medical knowledge as a weapon, Linda corrected. Blue, are the Krell vulnerable to biological countermeasures? Blue's silver eyes fixed on Linda. Krell physiology, different but similar enough. They fear contamination. Use bioweapons because they avoid direct contact. Powell, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. How do we know we can trust this information? For all we know, the Navari could be manipulating us into a trap. The room fell silent. It was a question they had all considered, but few had voiced. Blue's device displayed new text. Legitimate concern. Trust requires time, but time short. Krell ships approaching. 3 vessels heavily armed. Ryan Cooper confirmed this with a nod. We've detected unusual signals at the edge of our sensor range. 3 objects moving toward Proxima B at high speed. Arrival estimated in 36 hours. Linda looked around the table. I'm not ordering anyone to stay. This is technically against protocol. Anyone who wants to take a shuttle and rendezvous with the reinforcements can do so without penalty. No one moved. Engineer Baker broke the silence. If we're turning a hospital ship into a defense vessel, we have work to do. Dr. Daniels nodded. My team can begin synthesizing compounds from the colonists' antibodies. If the Krell use biological weapons, perhaps biological countermeasures are our best option. Linda felt a surge of pride in her crew. Then let's get started. We have 36 hours to redefine what a hospital ship can do. The next day and a half was a blur of activity. The Mercy's Grace underwent a transformation unlike anything in the history of human spacecraft. Medical equipment was repurposed for defense and offense. Surgical robots were reprogrammed for external repairs. Quarantine fields were modified to potentially serve as temporary shields. Dr. Wright spent hours with Blue, learning everything possible about Krell biology and weaknesses. What they discovered was promising. The Krell, despite their aggression, had an almost pathological fear of disease. Their bioweapons were always deployed remotely, never risking exposure themselves. Makes sense, Dr. Wright explained to Linda during a brief rest period. Species that specialize in biological warfare often develop cultural taboos about disease. They understand the risks better than anyone. Meanwhile, Dr. Daniels and his team worked tirelessly in the labs. The colonists' antibodies were replicated and enhanced, modified into forms that could potentially affect Krell biology. Security Officer Powell trained volunteer medical staff in emergency protocols. The Mercy's Grace had only a small security complement, but now nurses, technicians, and even some recovering patients were learning basic defense techniques. Engineer Baker and her team worked miracles with the ship's systems. The medical imaging arrays now served double duty as long-range sensors. The ship's robotic surgery systems were patched into the external maintenance robots, allowing for emergency repairs during battle. Blue also worked with the ship's systems, though always under supervision. The aliens' ability to interface directly with computers proved invaluable, helping to counter the Krell infiltration attempts. As the deadline approached, Linda called another meeting of her senior staff. Status reports, she said, looking more tired than any of them had ever seen her. Medical countermeasures ready, Dr. Daniels reported. We've developed 3 different compounds designed to target Krell biology, based on Blue's information. Delivery systems are the challenge. We've modified the external decontamination sprayers, Engineer Baker added. Range is limited, but if they get close enough, we can deploy Dr. Daniels's compounds directly against their hulls. Defensive systems are as ready as they'll ever be, Powell said. But Captain, we should be realistic. We're still essentially a hospital ship facing warships. Linda nodded. I understand the odds, but we're not fighting to win. We're fighting to survive until reinforcements arrive. Krell approaching, Blue's device displayed. 20 minutes to weapon range. Ryan Cooper looked up from his console. Confirmed, Captain. 3 vessels, definitely not human design. Their weapons are charging. Linda took a deep breath. Battle stations. This is what we've prepared for. As the crew moved to their positions, Linda remained in the conference room, for a moment with Blue. If this goes badly, she said, I want you to know we don't blame you or your people. Blue's silver eyes seemed to soften. Humans surprise Navari. Most species run. You stay and fight for others. That's what doctors do, Linda replied simply. We stay when others run. The ship's alert system sounded. The Krell had arrived, and humanity's first interstellar battle was about to begin. The Mercy's Grace, a ship designed to heal, was about to prove that sometimes medicine and warfare were not so different after all. Both required courage, innovation, and the will to stand against overwhelming odds. The bridge of the Mercy's Grace was silent as the 3 Krell ships appeared on the main view screen. They were unlike any vessels Linda had seen before. Dark, angular shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their surfaces, rippled with what looked like living tissue over metal, blurring the line between machine and organism. They're scanning us, Ryan Cooper reported from communications. Heavy signals across all frequencies. Linda nodded. Let them look. They'll see a hospital ship. A hospital ship with teeth, Powell said quietly. The largest Krell vessel moved closer, positioning itself directly above the human colony on Proxima B. The other 2 spread out, one moving toward the Mercy's Grace. They're deploying something, Paul Green announced, studying the sensor readings. Small objects released from the ship over the colony, hundreds of them. Dr. Daniels, who had joined them on the bridge, looked at the data. Delivery systems for biological agents. They're launching a second wave of attack against the colonists. Linda felt cold anger rise within her. Not on my watch. Target those objects. Use the modified laser arrays. The Mercy's Grace hummed as its surgical lasers, now repurposed as defensive weapons, targeted the falling objects. Precise beams lanced out, destroying dozens of the biological bombs before they could reach the atmosphere. On the view screen, the approaching Krell ship suddenly changed course, accelerating toward them. They've noticed, Powell said. Here comes the response. Linda gripped the arms of her command chair. Deploy countermeasures. Let's show them what a hospital ship can do. Engineer Susan Baker's voice came over the comm from engineering. Countermeasure. Systems ready, Captain. Remember, our range is limited. Wait until they're close, Linda ordered. Let them think we're an easy target. The Krell ship fired first. A beam of sickly green energy that struck the Mercy's Grace along its starboard side. The ship shuddered violently. Hull breach on Deck C, Paul reported. Automated seals engaged. Casualties? Linda asked immediately. Minor injuries reported, no fatalities. Linda nodded, relieved. Return fire. Target their weapon systems. The repurposed medical lasers fired again, more concentrated this time. The beams struck the approaching Krell ship with surgical precision, cutting into what appeared to be weapon emplacements. Direct hit, Powell reported with satisfaction. Their primary weapon system is showing damage. The Krell ship veered away, but not before firing again. This time, the beam struck the engines, causing the lights to flicker across the bridge. Engine efficiency down to 70%, Susan reported from engineering. We can maintain position, but our maneuverability is compromised. Linda turned to Dr. Daniels. Time for the next phase. Deploy the biological countermeasures. The doctor nodded and spoke into his communicator. Medical team. Execute protocol immune. Throughout the ship, Modified decontamination systems activated. Specially designed compounds, developed from the colonists' antibodies, sprayed into space toward the damaged Krell vessel. Will that even work in vacuum? Powell asked skeptically. Dr. Wright, who had been quietly monitoring from her science station, answered. The delivery medium is designed to attach to ship surfaces and remain viable in space. If it makes contact with their hull, it should penetrate their systems. On the view screen, they watched as the misty cloud of particles drifted toward the Krell ship. When it made contact, nothing seemed to happen at first. Then remarkably, the living tissue-like sections of the hull began to react, rippling and contracting. It's working, Dr. Wright said, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. Their bioorganic components are responding to the countermeasure. The Krell ship began to move erratically, as if in distress. Now we know why they attack from a distance, Linda remarked. They're vulnerable to biological warfare themselves. The moment of triumph was short-lived. The other two Krell vessels broke off their attack on the colony and turned toward the Mercy's Grace. They're coming about, Paul warned. Both ships. Targeting us now. Linda straightened in her chair. Focus fire on the damaged vessel. Let's finish what we started. The battle intensified as the Mercy's Grace poured its limited firepower into the compromised Krell ship while trying to evade the approaching vessels. The hospital ship shuddered repeatedly under enemy fire. Hull breaches on decks D and E, Paul reported grimly. Emergency medical teams responding. In the midst of the chaos, Blue entered the bridge. The alien moved with surprising grace despite its injuries, the communication device clutched in one hand. Must tell truth. The device displayed. More at stake than colony. Linda spared the alien a glance as another hit rocked the ship. What truth? Navari and Krell at war for centuries. Humans potential allies. My mission not just warning, evaluation. Powell moved toward Blue, his expression hardening. You were testing us? Assessing capabilities. Temperament. Would humans join fight? Or remain neutral? Another hit sent them all staggering. A console exploded in sparks, injuring a crew member. Dr. Daniels rushed to help. Linda felt anger rise within her. You used us as bait? Put my crew in this colony at risk to see how we'd react? Blue's silver eyes seemed to convey regret. Not intended. Krell discovered mission, attacked before proper contact established. The ship rocked again, more violently this time. Engine efficiency at 40%, Susan reported. We can't take much more of this, Captain. Linda looked around at her bridge, at her crew fighting to save not just themselves but thousands of colonists. Whatever Blue's true mission, the threat was real enough. The damaged Krell ship is retreating, Paul announced suddenly. Its systems appear to be failing. One down, Linda said. 2 to go. Dr. Wright approached, excitement in her eyes despite the danger. Captain, I've been analyzing the data from our countermeasure attack. The Krell ships aren't just using biological weapons. They're partly biological themselves. Their hulls contain living tissue that interfaces with mechanical systems, which makes them vulnerable to our medical knowledge, Linda realized. Exactly. But we'd need to get much closer to deploy effectively against the other ships. Linda considered this information. A dangerous plan formed in her mind. Susan, can we get a burst of speed from the engines? Just enough for one quick maneuver? We might get one good push before systems fail, the engineer confirmed. Linda made her decision. Plot an intercept course with the lead Krell vessel. We're going to give them a dose of their own medicine. Paul looked concerned. Captain, that would put us directly in their line of fire. Sometimes the best treatment requires getting your hands dirty, Linda replied, quoting an old medical saying. As the Mercy's Grace changed course directly toward the enemy, Blue's device displayed new text. Humans, surprise, Navari, again. Most species avoid direct confrontation with Krell. We're not most species, Linda said, gripping her chair as the ship accelerated toward its target. And this isn't your average hospital ship. The Mercy's Grace surged forward, engines straining as it closed the distance to the lead Krell vessel. Enemy fire intensified, striking the hospital ship again and again. Systems failed across multiple decks. Crew members worked frantically to treat injuries and repair damage. Dr. Daniels coordinated medical teams while continuing to refine the biological countermeasures. Through it all, Linda kept her focus on the approaching Krell ship. This was medicine on the grandest scale, treating not just individual patients but an entire world threatened by a disease called the Krell. As they closed to optimal range, Linda gave the order. Deploy all remaining countermeasures. Maximum dispersal. The Mercy's Grace released its most powerful weapon, knowledge, turned into defense. The biological compounds sprayed toward the Krell ship in a thick cloud. What happened next would change humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy forever. The biological countermeasures spread across the surface of the lead Krell ship like a living fog. For several tense moments, nothing seemed to happen. The enemy vessel continued to fire, landing another hit on the Mercy's Grace that sent warning, alarms blaring across the bridge. Countermeasures failing, Powell said, disappointment clear in his voice. Then Dr. Wright pointed at the view screen. Look, the hull texture is changing. She was right. The living tissue components of the Krell ship were reacting, rippling and contracting just as the first ship had done. But this time, the effect spread more rapidly, covering larger sections of the vessel's surface. The compound is working, Dr. Daniels said, eyes fixed on his medical readouts. It's triggering a massive immune response in their bioorganic systems. The Krell ship's movements became erratic. Its weapons fire went wild, missing the Mercy's Grace entirely. The third Krell vessel moved to assist its companion, but kept a cautious distance from the cloud of countermeasures. They're afraid, Linda realized aloud. They fear infection more than they want to destroy us. Blue's communication device displayed new text. Krell greatest fear. Their own weapons used against them. Engineer Susan Baker's voice came over the comm. Captain, engine efficiency at 20% and falling. Life support compromised on decks C through F. We can't take another direct hit. Linda surveyed the situation. The Mercy's Grace was badly damaged. The first Krell ship had retreated, possibly disabled. The second was crippled by their countermeasures. The third remained a threat, but was holding position, seemingly unwilling to risk contamination. Hold position, Linda ordered. Let them. See, we won't retreat. Minutes passed in tense silence. The damaged Krell vessels began to drift away from Proxima B, moving back toward deep space. The third ship followed, maintaining its distance from both the Mercy's Grace and its affected companions. They're withdrawing, Paul said with disbelief in his voice. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the Krell fleet retreated, moving beyond sensor range. Did we win? Someone asked. Linda shook her head. We survived. There's a difference. The next 12 hours were a blur of emergency repairs and medical treatment. The Mercy's Grace had taken severe damage. 2 crew members had died during the battle, with dozens more injured. Every medical bay was filled with patients, both from the ship's crew and emergency cases transported from the colony. Linda moved through the medical deck, checking on her people. Dr. Daniels and his team worked tirelessly, treating injuries ranging from minor burns to serious trauma cases. Despite the exhaustion evident on his face, the doctor managed a small smile when he saw her. The countermeasures are working on the colonists too, he told her. The Krell bioweapons are responding to our treatment. Recovery rates are up 40%. Linda nodded, taking comfort in this small victory. We did what we came here to do, at least. We're healing people. We did more than that, Dr. Daniels said. We proved that medicine can be as powerful as any weapon. Linda continued, her rounds eventually finding Blue helping Dr. Wright in the research lab. The alien was using its connection to the ship's computers to analyze data from the battle. Krell will return, Blue's device displayed when it noticed Linda. But not soon. Need to adapt first. Humans prove dangerous. Good, Linda said simply. That gives us time to prepare. Navari impressed. Humans fight differently. Use knowledge as shield and weapon. Linda studied the alien that had become an unlikely ally. You still haven't told us everything. Why were you really sent here? Blue seemed to hesitate, then typed, Galaxy changing. Krell expanding territory. Navari seeking allies. And you were sent to decide if humans were worth allying with. Yes, evaluation complete. And humans pass. Will recommend alliance. Before Linda could respond, Communications Officer Ryan Cooper contacted her. Captain, we're receiving transmissions. Earth reinforcements have arrived. Linda felt relief wash over her. Tell them we could use some assistance with repairs. There's more, Ryan said, excitement in his voice. The USS Defender is leading a fleet of 6 military vessels. They detected the battle from a distance. Our transmissions about the Krell and the Navari reached Earth Command. They're calling it First Contact Fleet now. Within hours, military vessels surrounded Proxima B, providing protection as medical ships began arriving to assist with treating the colonists. The Mercy's Grace, too damaged for immediate space travel, was designated as the coordination center for ongoing medical efforts. 3 days after the battle, Linda stood in a newly repaired conference room with Blue and representatives from Earth Command. Admiral Victor Nash, a stern-faced man with decades of military experience, listened intently as Linda and Blue explained the situation. So we're looking at a multi-species conflict that's been going on for centuries, and now humanity has been pulled into it, the Admiral summarized. Not pulled in, Linda corrected. We chose to engage when we could have run. There's a difference. The Admiral studied Blue with undisguised curiosity. And the Navari are offering an alliance? Formal diplomatic contact initiated. Blue's device displayed. Navari fleet approaching. 3 weeks arrival. Admiral Nash turned to Linda. Captain Moore, Earth Command has reviewed your actions. Under normal circumstances, disobeying direct orders would result in severe consequences. Linda straightened, prepared to accept whatever punishment came. I understand, sir. However, the Admiral continued, these are not normal circumstances. Your actions saved the colony and provided humanity with our first alien ally. Earth Command is establishing a new division specifically for interspecies medical cooperation. We'd like you to command it. Linda blinked in surprise. Sir, the Mercy's Grace will be rebuilt, upgraded. A new class of vessel, medical ships, with proper defensive capabilities. The first of the Interspecies Medical Corps. Later that evening, Linda stood at the viewport in her quarters, watching as repair ships worked on the damaged hull of the Mercy's Grace. Dr. Wright joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. I heard about your new command, Samantha said, handing Linda a cup. Congratulations. Linda accepted the coffee with a nod of thanks. It wasn't what I expected when I took command of a hospital ship. None of this was expected, Samantha said, gesturing toward the stars beyond the viewport. But it's quite an adventure. It's going to be a different kind of medicine, Linda mused. Healing not just bodies, but relationships between species. As they spoke, Blue approached, its silver eyes taking in the repair work visible through the viewport. Navari saying, its device displayed, greatest healers sometimes warriors, greatest warriors sometimes healers. Linda smiled slightly. On Earth we have a similar saying, first, do no harm. But sometimes preventing harm requires action. Outside, the stars continued their eternal watch as the damaged hospital ship transformed into something new, a symbol of humanity's first steps into a wider, more complex galactic community. Not as conquerors or victims, but as healers who knew when to fight and fighters who remembered how to heal. This wasn't your average hospital ship. And Linda Moore wouldn't have it any other way.